Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up. And thank you all for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. And today, I'll be comparing the original and remake of Pet Sematary. Both are adaptations of Stephen King's novel of the same name. And this month, I'll be joined by another special guest, but this time, it'll be their very first time as a guest on my channel. If you're a fan of creature features, slashers, and 80s film, then you'll probably become a fan of theirs too. Please join me in welcoming Dice Rollen. Dice, hello, welcome, and thank you for being here. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing all right. It's hot. It's hot around here.
I'm liking it. It's getting hot over here too, finally, after 9 months of winter.
Yeah, well, by comparison to winter. Yeah.
Little better. Well, yes, the last time we chatted together was our very first time talking with each other over on your channel, and we discussed The Machinist for your special, The Horror of Mental Health, which I had a great time with. I always have a good time talking about that movie. But today, we are going to dive straight into some sour land. But first, here is a brief synopsis for both films, and spoilers are ahead. In the original film, the Creed family moves from Chicago to rural Maine, where they befriend their neighbor, Judd Crandall, who introduces them to an eerie pet cemetery in the woods. After Ellie's cat Church is killed and resurrected with malevolent traits, tragedy strikes again when their son Gage dies. Despite warnings from Victor Pascal, Lewis buries Gage in the cursed ground, leading to catastrophic consequences. Gage returns as a flesh-eating zombie, killing Judd and Rachel, and in his grief, Lewis attempts to resurrect Rachel as well, only to face a grim fate himself. This version starred Del Midkiff, Denise Crosby, Fred Gwynne, Miko Hughes, and Blaze Berdahl. The screenplay was written by Stephen King himself and was directed by Mary Lambert. In the remake, we essentially have the same setup and story, only this time Ellie is the one who was killed by a passing truck. And we get an entirely different kind of third act, with a ballerina zombie wreaking havoc that ends on another bleak note. The remake stars Jason Clarke, Amy Seimetz, Jetta Lawrence, and John Lithgow as Judd. The screenplay was written by Matt Greenberg and Jeff Buller and was directed by duo Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. Now, Dice, I know you're a huge fan of the original, but before we start comparing the two, let our fellow Stardust know what draws you to this film in particular.
This, I can't remember exactly when I watched it. It was a number of years ago. I'd always heard about it, heard it was creepy, knew one of the catalysts, I guess you would call it. So I knew certain things. Zelda, of course, you hear about the nightmares that Zelda has caused. So yes. When I finally did watch it, I was actually kind of surprised because, well, the first experience with Pet Sematary was actually the song the Ramones made for it. That was on one of those, kid-friendly Halloween CDs.
Yeah.
And that conjured some very interesting mental imagery for me. That was nothing like the movie. But still, I finally decided to watch it, I think, because of the song. And it all seemed really impressively eerie and unsettling. I am not a terribly easy person to unsettle or disturb, but Pet Sematary did that. And then, of course, I read the book, and then we saw the remake. So, an interesting little flow to it. There's a lot of elements in there that are just, for one reason or another, I didn't even put zombie to it for the longest time. I don't know why. It was just, as a whole, this is unsettling.
Yes, because it's got like this emotional pull to it. It's not, on its face a zombie movie. It's more of a movie about this family and what they would do in order to stay together. So yeah, it's heartbreaking in that way.
Yeah, very much. You don't see that with such small kids in general, but such small kids, even in horror films. It's bizarre, especially for like the late 80s, I would think.
That's awesome that you were still able to appreciate it as an adult. Because, yes, this was a film that I absolutely loved as a kid and just always went to growing up. We always had at least 3 pets in the house because my mom was always picking up strays. So I've always had an affinity towards pets and animals. And I just loved that angle of the story where they had a place to rest. And if you really wanted one to come back, you could go a little bit further.
Hey,
And
go
maybe
ahead,
train
try
it. Yeah, maybe train it a little better than church, maybe possibly.
it. He just needs more goodies. It's okay. A nice bath. I don't know.
Yeah. And, just as a kid, I just loved this juxtaposition between this idyllic family and this idyllic place and just sunshine and rainbows against this, spooky atmosphere as well. Because you would see the smoke on the path and the trees and the woods just always looked super gloomy and creepy. As much as I loved trees and still love trees, they can very much look creepy at night, and they did a really good job with the shadows and cinematography in certain parts in the original.
All the lighting and, like you said, the smoke, the fog, the rolling around. I'm still very disappointed. I live in a more wooded area. I'm still very disappointed. I have found neither a path nor a bunch of fog rolling around. It's kind of disappointing.
Damn.
Yeah. Maybe it's a certain window of the day. I don't know. I gotta catch it every
Oh,
time.
snap. Well, to compare the two films real quick, as far as character portrayals go, how do you feel the portrayals of Judd differ from the original and the remake?
I have nothing against John Lithgow. I think he's quite an impressive actor on pretty much everything he's been in. And I don't really blame him for this. As always, I try to correct myself, and like it's probably the directors. It's probably what was written for him. This kind of modern version of the story. With that being said, I much prefer Fred Gwynn as Judd. I think he was able to balance this obviously very caring old man. He cared. He's a nice guy. I know some people are like, well, he's to blame for this whole thing. That's not wrong, but I see it as like the influence of the Micmac burial ground rather
Right.
than this is Judd acting in a malevolent way. But John Lithgow's version of Judd seemed more like, are you on a list? Should you be on a list? I think we should watch him. I don't know. Not because of the burial ground. No, take that completely out. Is he all right? He was more full on creepy than that balance of, am I okay with him or is he just an older guy? So Fred Gwynn did it better.
Yes.
I think.
Agreed. And like you said, it just seemed more sinister when John Lithgow's character was showing Judd where to bury Church.
No, Lewis.
I'm sorry, Lewis. Yes. when
Whoever these people are.
when Judd was showing Lewis, yeah, it was just more sinister and more. It seemed like for personal reasons. With in the original, with Fred Gwynn, it just seemed like he was just a little kooky, just kind of a little goofy, and
It's
maybe
that old main thing.
he had nothing else to do. He was a little bored, And I like the fact that we're introduced to him, with him basically saving Gage's life, and the whole family gets to meet him instead of him creepily meeting Ellie in the woods by herself. It just seemed off and odd, and he was trying to be creepy but then nice at the same time. It's like which which are you and what do you want to be?
You got to balance this.
Yeah.
Like when Fred Gwynn, during the first meeting with the Creed family, he is this very kind of warm, a little weird, but that's okay. A little warm kind of atmosphere that he brings to things. Like I said, he saved Gage one time, and then he's asked about the road or the path, whatever it is, and that's where you see this like shift. It's a very subtle shift where he goes from warm to ominous, not necessarily malevolent, just ominous of like he knows, and you know he knows something, but he's trying to play it off.
Mm-hmm.
So again, with John Lithgow, you're saying hello to a little girl in the woods. Excuse me, sir. I think we need to talk for a moment.
And you're touching her too, even though you're helping her. It's just weird.
Sir, please.
Yes. And just with the whole family being introduced to the titular place, Pet Sematary, together and learning about it together just made more sense. Because yes, in the remake, we then have Judd's character be more weird and also become a bit useless because we have Lewis Googling all the stuff that Judd told him in the first film, and then we've also got him getting drugged, which is just so disrespectful. Like, yes, he was weird, but that also just renders him useless again. It was almost pointless to have Judd.
Yeah, it was just essentially, it felt like, anyway, because, Judd was a character in the original. We should have him in this remake / deviation. That was about it.
Yes, exactly. And, I think what makes the first film just feel more emotional as well is the fact that Stephen King, this was the first time that he had written a screenplay for one of his novels. And so he knew exactly what to extract and made a perfect script for his novel, because it's really hard to adapt a whole novel into just 90 minutes. And with him being the one to make the screenplay, was perfect. And also on top of that, with his experience, most of this movie is based on his life. He had his son who almost got hit in the street on the highway at his home by a semi truck. He also had a daughter who had her cat die because it got hit by a truck on that same highway. So all these elements to set a really good foundation, I think, what helped to make this a really powerful story. Because again, it's not just a zombie movie. It's about this family, this tight-knit family who is slowly being torn apart.
In a very vicious way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that it's a lot of real life, how should we say it, real life foundation in the story that was created. And I said I had read the novel, and I think obviously there are some differences to be made in scripts just in general, but for the most part, I was reading through it like, yeah, that was a scene, that was a scene, that was a scene. Okay, they left a little bit of that out, but we kind of still got it anyway. It's all pretty much the same from the book, and then the remake is different.
What happens in that stony ground to the soil of a man's heart is stonier, Lewis.
How would you say the storytelling techniques differ between the two films, and which approach do you think was more effective? Which I think I know your answer to that one.
There may be a little bias here, just a little. Trying to compare the two is kind of interesting because I would watch Pet Sematary, the original, pretty frequently, and I've only really seen the remake like once or twice. But I kind of saw that, read the novel all in a short kind of time span. But I can see why they changed which kid was hit by the truck in the remake, because I think Stephen King even said, yes, this change makes sense. It makes more sense. And I can kind of agree with that. I understand because Ellie is able to talk. She's able to convey things before and after she's killed, and she's not that much less creepy. Especially since she's a ballerina twirling around causing havoc in the living room. The bath scene where he's cleaning her up, that was creepy. That was a good bit creepy. The staples in the skull, that was I imagine that was a little bit more effective as well when it comes to the horror of this kid was hit by a truck. They're not in one piece. And meanwhile we have Gage who's got a little scar. He was supposed to have more. I realized he was supposed to have more, but because Miko Hughes was so young and small, doing a cast was nearly impossible. So I get that. Comfort of the actors first. That's good. But at the same time, just comparing the two kids, I think Gage is creepier. Ellie's creepy, yes, but Gage is creepier. Because he's supposed to be this essentially personification of innocence and this pure little thing that wouldn't hurt anything. We saw him before he was hit by a truck. And then we have this blonde version of Chucky, essentially, afterwards. So, that's interesting. I think Lewis, in both iterations, is stupid. We know this. He's been on many different this is an idiot list. At the same time, sympathetic, because I know for a fact that there are a lot of people who might say, well, that's stupid. Why would you do that? Whom, when put in that situation, would probably do the exact same thing. So, you understand, this we're watching a spiral of this guy's mental health and stability as the film goes on. No matter how well educated he was a doctor. But I think the story, just in general, is, if you'll pardon the pun, in the remake, a little lifeless. It's lacking some things. Zelda is an element that's very creepy in the original. We don't really even see her in the remake. And I remember people talking about, like, well, I wonder what they're going to do with Zelda in this. And she's barely there. We hear her fall down the shaft, essentially, the dumbwaiter, and that's it. Well, thanks. That was significantly less detrimental. We're going for trauma revisited here. What is this? Rachel also really not participating very much in the remake, I'm afraid. Gage is virtually forgotten in the remake. Even Ellie in the original had something to do. She was the canon Stephen King psychic for the story. And we get none of that here in the remake. One hope, also, that I had heard from people was that the Wendigo was going to be more talked about or addressed in this. And it really wasn't, by comparison. We might have seen an illustration.
Yeah.
And that was it. I know it was a very fleeting little comment in the original, but in the remake it really doesn't contribute. Which, granted, in the novel they don't really talk about it too much either, but we're not supposed to know too much.
I guess, right?
But
yeah, you're right with the kid switch. I actually didn't mind the kids, deaths switching at all. Especially, it was more like a relief, to tell you the truth, because I was like, the little boy was just not good at acting. This little girl, she had some chops. And so I was like, okay, that's going to make more sense because this little boy is not going to be able to be scary. But going into her zombie state, again, like you, I think Gage was definitely a little creepier. She had her moment where she's doing her dance that gets a lot of criticism from folks, but that was maybe one of the things that I did enjoy when she was a zombie, was her dancing around like a bat out of hell, breaking things. And but just with her consciousness and just being so aware did take away from the creep factor a bit. She was just too adult and just, I don't know, just not cocky, but just too in the know. I just didn't like that part about her zombie state. And as far as Lewis goes, both of them not great actors in my opinion, but at least with the first one, he seemed a little bit more unhinged, especially when he's digging Gage's grave. You have the cop come searching around and they miss him, and he does this little like maniacal laugh and he just keeps on digging. And I'm like, yes, comparatively to the new guy, he just is super flat.
He's very stoic.
Very stoic. And, with that, Lewis's character, we don't really get that close relationship with his wife. I just felt like they were combating more in the remake than in the original. That love wasn't there anymore. And that was just super frustrating because that's what makes the ending so powerful, and her death so sad too. And then just to go on your Zelda comment, it's unfortunate that didn't hit as well as it could have. It was just frustrating seeing how disgusting and dirty Zelda's clothes and room were, because yes, while she's sick, she was still being taken care of by the parents, so her clothes would not have been stained and disgusting, and her chest of drawers would have been dusted. They just left her in there just to rot like they did, yes, but they also still took care of her. That was the whole point. And yeah, we don't get to see a whole lot of her, but the one thing I did enjoy about the Zelda character was Rachel transforming into her for a split second. That was fun. I like when people, hallucinate some crazy shit, and becoming her sister was her fear in the original, and it happens in the remake. So I liked seeing that.
Rachel.
Now you'll never get out of bed again.
When we're introduced to the kids wearing the masks in their little procession, I definitely thought we were going to get something more from that, but we literally just see them and then they go away. And they're made to look creepy, which is kind of annoying because they're on their way to the Pet Sematary, where it's supposed to be a nice place, a sentimental and special place. But they made this scene so creepy to have Ellie be interested and then have her, go there by herself and then run into Jude. It just seemed like it was trying too hard to be spooky and creepy for no reason.
Yeah, it was all for the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I don't know, see, it doesn't make sense. That's, even from the trailer, I was trying to figure that out. Why do we need this? I get it's creepy, yes, and hey, merchandise, wow. But in the original, like you said, if they just did it in a similar fashion to where Judd led all of them to the Pet Sematary, problem solved. But since he didn't in the remake, then we still need to find a way for, I guess, Ellie to find the place, I suppose. Even though I don't think necessary for her to find the place for everything else to happen, but that's just me. But yeah, just like you said, it's the Pet Sematary itself is different than the Micmac burial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they might have gotten the separation of the two confused in the remake. It's just both are creepy. No. Judd literally in the original says this is a place of rest. This is a place where the dead speak, but not in a creepy way. It's stories to be told. This is where kids would lovingly bury and remember their pets. So why would they put on creepy masks and have a creepy little toy drum and have a funeral procession like it's some sort of, speaking of trying to be PC when it comes to indigenous people, why are we doing this but not talking about the Wendigo?
Yeah.
It seems like a conflict of interest here.
Yeah. And there wasn't as much a focus of the Micmac burial ground as in the original. Like, we don't get a nice aerial shot of it where it's seen in all of its glory. Like, when they go, it's dark and we just see like a corner. And then when Judd is overlooking the cliff, like, we can see out into the valley, but it's still too dark to see beyond there. But that's not even where Lewis is digging the hole. So there's just not enough emphasis on it. And it could have been amazing because in the original, they built this with rocks and stone, or, styrofoam, and built it very intricately. And it took them a long time to put it together, and you can see the work they put into it. But here I had to like rewind it, and I'm like, wait, did we even see that? I don't even remember. Yeah, like, what is going on? So that was a disappointment.
And actually, that's another thing. This is something that I'm sure a lot of people complain about with more modern films, which is it was too dark. I mean that visually. I can't see what's happening. It's not like I need to see everything, but you can balance this like creepy dark atmosphere without it being really dark.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know what's going on. Who's doing what? Where is he? Is that Lewis? I can't tell. Who is that? Who's moving
It's
around?
not suspense. That's not building tension at all.
That's confusion.
Yes.
This is confusion.
What exactly are we doing here tonight, Judd?
We're burying your daughter's cat.
And that's all.
That and nothing but.
We can both agree that the original is definitely the more emotional one. But was there a scene or two in the remake that brought that about just a little bit for you?
Let's see. Maybe with the cat. Clearly, the cat is the best actor in this. But the cat, he was sitting out in the road after he'd been resurrected, and the way that he looked, so matted and everything, as he should, trying to lure Ellie out, I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. That's an interesting way of getting Ellie out into the road, because she wouldn't just chase after a kite for no reason out into the road like Gage would.
Stupid
no
kid.
offense to Gage. He's small, it's alright. I have ADHD, I do too. But to have that be the catalyst was interesting. I think they came close with that. It gave Church also something a little bit more to do with the fall of this family. So through Church, it was like the Micmac burial ground, the malevolence that was there acting. So he was a conduit. So
yeah,
that's nice. That's nice. Cat's actively participating. It's great.
Yeah, because Judd mentions something to the effect of, the Micmac burial ground is upset with me for showing you the burial ground and burying Church there. And then that's why Ellie probably was killed. And then with Church coming back, he's kind of angry, I guess. He is saying like, hey, Lewis, you buried me and left me there. Maybe he's upset, and he comes back and he's sitting in the road because he wants to kill Ellie, because he's upset about being left behind.
I mean, I'd be a little upset too. Leave me here. Thanks. Gotta get myself out. Nice.
Yes, that scene in particular is good. I definitely can't help but get pretty emotional when I see that scene and the truck flying off its hitch, because the slow motion and the sound design of it is just done perfectly. That was a good scene.
I do like that they don't show her.
Yeah.
I think that was a good idea, because they didn't show Gage either. Just a shoot.
Yeah.
Which was enough. That was enough. It's more the reactions of the parents, which I'll give them credit for this.
Yeah.
The parents had pretty good reactions, at least the mother.
Yeah.
Had a pretty good reaction in that situation.
And to go back to your comment about when she's a zombie in the bathtub and he's combing her hair and you see the stitches, or the staples rather, then that gives you the visual of what the dad saw. Her head was likely just split wide open, so you could
Things
just
were missing.
things were gone.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yes.
That's realistic, I would think. Well, I don't know the exact medical photorealism, but it seems more realistic. Like,
Hmm.
it wouldn't be torn limb from limb or anything like that, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some skull damage. Because Victor Pascal kind of gave us that showing of what could have happened to Gage or Ellie.
Yep.
So, literally, you're missing things. It's not good.
They definitely could have pushed it a little bit farther too with her special effects makeup, because I guess she was trying to, or her dad was trying to assimilate her to real life. She was cleaner or something, but she should have had a little bit more wrong with her, in my opinion.
Even just something to where she didn't say anything, do anything. You look at her and you're like, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Something's not right here.
Like, her little lazy eye just wasn't enough. And I get that her and Church had the matching lazy eye, but it wasn't enough.
A girl and her cat and their matching lazy eye. Yeah.
Yes, and I love how this, you can tell that it's inspired by the short story Monkey's Paw. Love that story. I've actually narrated it on my channel before, so check that out if you want to give that a listen, as well as things like Dracula and Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You can totally see his how he was influenced with that, along with his own life, his own story.
Yeah. Lots of influences, really. I'm sure even perhaps a little sprinkling of George A. Romero, given the situations.
Yeah, well, he was actually going to direct the first one. Stephen King was being super picky about what director was going to direct the film, and George A. Romero won the rights for $10,000, but ended up not being able to do it because it conflicted with his schedule with Monkey Shines. So that would have been cool to see. But I'm very happy that Mary Lambert was the one who ended up directing, because it did have that soft, feminine touch that I think it really needed.
Yeah, I like her style thus far. I really haven't seen all that much from her, but I saw an episode of Tales from the Crypt. I think it was Collection Complete, season 1, last episode, maybe. But she directed that one as well, and ironically, it has to do with animals. And, in a way, bringing animals back, we'll put it that way.
Nice. Okay.
So I see a theme, but I like what I've seen from her thus far. I think she did quite good in what she decided to pay the most attention to, all the details and characteristics and direction, of course.
Yes. Her art background definitely aided her in creating this beautiful movie. It's a beautiful movie to me. I love the way that it looks.
People might complain that it's too bright. It's supposed to be bright. Things get darker as other things happen. That's the point.
Yes. And that's the other thing about the remake, is like, I don't like that start on the dread and the blood and the path.
Dark from the start.
Yeah.
So we know something bad's gonna happen. All right, lighten up.
It's like, we know this is a remake. We don't need the reminder of what the ending is gonna sort of be like. We know this, and even for new audiences who've never seen the first one, they don't need it either. It's a horror movie. We know it's gonna get scary.
Yeah. Something bad's gonna happen. We got it. So.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's been very busy. I really don't have anything.
What about the Aries K? The one with the scratch on its side?
I do have an Aries K. But it came in rather beat up, and there's a long scrape up one side. I'll take it.
This is something that has always ticked me off just a little bit about the remake. Victor Pascal.
Yes, let's talk about him.
I like Victor Pascal in the original. That's a very interesting character to me, because he was hit by a truck. Clearly, this is a problem for this area. I think it should be looked into. perhaps put up some children at play warning signs or something.
Yes.
Slow down. Have some cops around. I don't know. But when he's brought in, again, that's kind of your visual that you will later bring to mind when Gage is hit. But he's supposed to act as the moral compass, in a way. Like a very morbid Jiminy Cricket.
Yes.
And he's the good force, and you wouldn't expect that from someone who looks like that. But he's always there trying to stop this. Just because Lewis tried to save his life, he's like, okay, let me try to look out for you and your highly unstable self. But in the remake, I was very uncertain about it, and I was kind of proven right. This is no slight, once again, to the actor, but we see him in essentially the same situation in the school medical area, and that's about it. Like, he's supposed to show up more, but we don't get the Victor Pascal ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly at all, which I think is yet another waste of a character. Is a common theme I see.
You call him what?
A common theme.
Oh.
A common theme, a waste of character in this story, I say. So that was rather disappointing for me. Like I said, maybe I'm a little bit biased just because I do like the character of Victor Pascal, but
No, you're right. We definitely do get a lot less of that character. In the first one, it never really made sense. Like, I get that Lewis tried to save his life, so the boy is now trying to save Lewis's life. But there still was, like, no way that really made sense. Like, how did this guy know, or how did he know Lewis's name in the first place and know that, like, he would possibly bury an animal there? Probably because, he was the town doctor and everybody knew that he was moving there, whatever. And just the answer is supernatural. It's Stephen King's deal. That's what he likes to do. And so who cares? Yeah, supernatural.
Well, because he's almost dead. Oh, magic tricks when he's dying. Wow.
So yeah, as a kid, I just accepted it, and in my adulthood, I still accepted it because he's a fun character. He looks cool, and he's trying to save Lewis, and he's got all these opportunities, and yet he still messes up. And then we have Ellie's character who interacts with him a bit, and that gets a lot of attention and moves the story forward. But yeah, in the remake, we don't get a whole lot of him, and it doesn't have as much of an impact. So we've got Judd, Victor, and Gage just losing a lot of their power in the remake.
It would almost make it seem like the remake would be better if you didn't have Judd or Gage or Victor.
Yeah.
But then I guess that would make it a little bit less of a remake, so there's a conflict right there.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to work that out. Maybe they should have just made it a prequel or a sequel or something. Make it a different family where they have one daughter. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, the prequel they came out with after that, Bloodlines.
I've heard great things.
No, it is not good. It's just not creepy or scary at all. I mean, this remake of Pet Sematary was a little bit atmospheric, but and then so the prequel is just none of that. It just didn't have any of the good stuff that the remake has.
Missed it.
Yeah, again.
Of course, we do
unfortunate.
get a sequel. We do technically have a sequel.
Oh, right.
With Mr. Furlong. So that one's not bad.
I need to rewatch that one. Yeah.
It's a bit of a different tone, but I think it still gets the general idea. So I'll give it that. It's a little bit more underrated. I think people are coming around to it.
Let's go ahead and rate the original and the remake. Out of 5 Rainbow Skulls, how many would you give the original and the remake?
That's it. I don't even remember the score that I gave it in my review. Of course, I do. It's a little bit different. I go all the way to 10 because we were indecisive.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. We need more.
And if you want to do it out of 10, that's fine too. You can do that
No,
too.
I think let's go by my letterbox review.
Yeah, take your time. Look it up.
I gave it 4.5 out of 5, the original. So I'll continue with that. I think that's pretty fair. That's not a perfect film, and no, there's a lot of overacting, some cheesy acting.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mr. Dale Midkiff, which I've heard great things about, of course, was a little stiff here, but it's okay. He was used to soap operas. It's all right. This is different. And the remake, 2 out of 5.
Dang. Okay.
I might have to revisit it, and maybe that'll change it. But for now, I think 2 is at least a good base for it.
Sure.
It took me several times before I actually bought the remake in the bargain bin. So, all right, fine. I'm collecting everything. Why not?
Yeah, might as well add it to the collection.
I don't know. Throw it on the shelf. I don't know.
I'd probably give the original 4 Rainbow Skulls out of 5, and the remake, I want to say 2.5, but I guess it could get a 3. I'll give it 3 Rainbow Skulls out of 5 for right now.
It's fair. If I'm more forgiving than I. Again, but perhaps a little biased.
That's all right. That's all right. All right. Well, before we wrap up this video, would you like to let everybody know what you've got going on over on your channel?
Yes, we took a little bit of a unintended break. Surprise. That happens every once in a while. I don't even know when it happens, but which is unfortunate because we had Pride Month here.
Yeah.
All right, I didn't do nothing. We had a lovely 10th episode, as a matter of fact, of the Horror of Mental Health, and that was with James of Shut Up James, and we talked about Child's Play 2. So that's a fairly recent thing that it's up. I am working a lot on scripts and other things. I need to do some more countdowns and whatnot, but some scripts that I have already that I'm hoping to get re-recorded because there was a problem before would be Phantasm 3, what was it called? There's a very specific name, The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue.
Cool.
I always get that wrong. Late Night with the Devil. I recently watched Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I'm gonna see if I can do a review of that one. That's an interesting little film from the same guy who gave us A Christmas Story.
Okay. Okay.
You wouldn't think. Then you look at his cinematography, his work, and you're like, anything other than that, just a myriad of different things that haven't exactly been solidified just yet. Of course, there's going to be more horror of mental health episodes, 1 per month, as per the usual, hopefully. I had somewhat recently taken by the hand my dear friends Celise of Sweet and Spooky and Charles of Williscredia through the entire Phantasm franchise. That's a fun
cool.
watch-along series for everybody.
Yeah.
There will be more watch-alongs with both of them. They have requested certain things. Society is one that Charles has not seen, and Celise wants to be there during his experience. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Hell
Maybe
yeah.
by this time that will have happened. I don't know. It depends on scheduling. But we are getting back into things with reviews, whatnot. That's what I've got so far.
Very cool. Sounds like a lot of fun. So y'all be sure to check out Dice's channel. All of the links are going to be down in the description. Well, Dice, thank you again for being here today. It was such a good time talking with you about Pet Sematary.
Likewise. Yeah.
Well, all right, Stardust. Until next time, peace.